everybody to the Vashon Heritage Museum History Talks. Today's talk is about Vashon's festivals. This talk is a partnership with the Vashon Heritage Museum and the Senior Center. And we also want to recognize and thank our sponsor for culture. Now let's introduce our speakers. Cheryl Lubbert is the board president of the Vashon Chamber of Commerce and co-owner of Nashi Orchards. Bruce Haulman is an island historian, a doctor and professor of history, the author of several books on the subject of Vashon Island and the Puget Sound, and the current board president of the Heritage Museum. Cheryl and Bruce, thank you for creating this talk and being here with us today. And today would have been the first day of Strawberry Festival. Tell us about the history of festivals on the island.
Well, thank you very much, Elsa, and I'm very happy to be here. And you're right, today would have been the official first day of Strawberry Festival 2020. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has forced the Chamber to make a tough decision and put the safety of our community ahead of the tradition of our 2020 Strawberry Festival. So officially, it has been postponed until 2021. And since it takes almost a year to plan and arrange the festival that now attracts 30,000 attendees, we wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing for our community. And we had concerns about gathering, and there was so much uncertainty early in the spring when we were having to make this decision that we feel like it was the right thing to give everybody a rain check. And actually the slide you're seeing here is a nice mock-up of the t-shirts that we are doing just as a memory of the fact that this is one of the years that we had to cancel the Strawberry Festival. As you can see here, our strawberry has its mask on, being very safe in the middle of COVID. But this is definitely something that will be a piece of and a memorabilia for the fact that we had to cancel 2021. The Chamber, during this time, instead of focusing on preparing for Strawberry Festival, has actually decided to focus on helping our businesses get through the COVID-19 pandemic by providing expert local resources, including webinars, similar to this, but on business topics on how they could get loans for the PPP and also how to handle employment issues and how to open their businesses safely or reopen their businesses safely. In fact, the Chamber has done 14 webinars, 16 reopening workshops, distributed hundreds of reopening kits that included signage, sanitizer, and masks. And in addition to that, we've also distributed thousands of masks to the business and community, all with a real focus on keeping our community safe. And we've done a pretty good job of that. We also decided that we couldn't just let summer start without doing something fun. We know that people needed something to look forward to. And so we thought, okay, how can we do this and be safe for everybody? So we took a couple concepts that are near and dear to everybody's heart. The idea of the classic car parade, which a lot of people are familiar with, that it happens every Strawberry Festival. We also thought about Passport Pain, which is another event that happens on the island where people go all over the island on their bikes and traverse the steepest hills. And that is certainly an athletic endeavor. And then, of course, Stupid Bike Night, which is another type of festival that we do here to kind of usher summer out and welcome fall. And it certainly is fun for all of us locals. And we mashed all those concepts together and we came up with a pop-up car parade for 4th of July, especially this year since we didn't have fireworks. We thought this would be our fireworks. So we got a bunch of businesses and organizations all over the island to take the parade to our neighborhoods throughout our community and celebrate the 4th of July in a safe way for people. And it was a lot of fun. And you see here on the slide, the voice of Vashon. And in fact, not only was the concept of taking the parade to the neighborhoods innovative, but we also live streamed and announced the parade on Voice of Vashon so people would hear it in advance and be able to come down to their driveways and see all of the spectacle of the cars going by and the trucks going by. And it was really great because the parade was led by Engine 57 from our fire and rescue group, really putting safety first for the island. And it was followed by the EOC with the mask, a giant mask on the front of the car, just reminding everybody to be safe so that we keep the incidence of COVID down here on the island. So that was certainly a highlight and something fun that we did this year to kind of just give us something to look forward to, have a little fun, and keep everybody's spirits up, and celebrate our great country. Could you go to the next slide? So we have been doing things a little bit different, but I think the point of by community for community is perfect for all our festivals, for Strawberry Festival or the pop-up parade. And we're going to talk a lot about today sort of how the parade, how festivals have changed and evolved over time. And so if you could go to the next slide for me. Thank you. You know, I think that there has definitely been a lot of change, and I think that you'll see here a good old picture all the way back from 1923, what the focus was and what Mrs. Melissa Lucy Jane looked like. But you know, festivals today are quite different, and you see the picture there at the bottom, people marching through downtown. Some of the things that we had planned for Festival 2020 that we had to put on the back burner and hopefully we'll be able to execute in 2021 is we were actually going to make Festival longer. We were going to add a day so that it would officially kick off with a concert at VCA on a Thursday night. We also were planning to have an extra full day of vendors and food on Friday, the 17th. So if you can envision everybody being downtown today with all the vendors out and a night market on Friday night. And also think about a food truck court where you could go and visit a whole bunch of different food trucks. Of course, Orca Eats, one of our chamber members, would definitely be spearheading that. And then, of course, we were going to extend Festival all the way to Cove Road because we had so much interest. So we thought that would be fun. We also were thinking about doing some different activities at Festival that, of course, we'll have to surprise you with in 2021. But we did have a lot of fun activities planned. And of course, we are keeping some traditions alive. And I think Elsa already mentioned the unofficial mayor announcement. Normally, we would do that right at Festival. And just want to remind everybody, if you haven't voted for an unofficial mayor, today is the last day to vote. And we are going to officially announce our unofficial mayor on Sunday. So please stay tuned for that. And if you haven't voted, please vote. And also, if you're interested in one of the t-shirts, we certainly can take an order for the t-shirt with the poster that I showed you earlier, or the design that I showed you earlier. Bruce, you want to get into how these festivals have changed over time? Because we certainly have seen a lot of change.
Well, yeah, we have. And Cheryl, I think that's a good sort of introduction to how flexible the festival has been through the years. The Heritage Museum had the float in the parade, and I drove the float in the parade along with Elsa. And we were just amazed at the number of people that came out all over the island, came down to the end of the driveways, gathered in their communities like Burton and Ellisport and Tahlequah. It was just amazing. And so people really wanted to get out and celebrate. And this pop-up parade was just a brilliant way for the island to sort of see itself through these very, very difficult times. So kudos to the chamber for that. But the festival has not always been the Strawberry Festival. The very first festival on the island was in 1900, and it was called an island festival, and it just took place once. It wasn't repeated then until 1909, when it became the Strawberry Festival, and actually in 1909, and then was repeated again in 1912, and intermittently through the mid-1920s. Then it changed its name to Carnival. And through the Depression, there were times when it was canceled in the Depression. It had different names at different times. It was canceled during World War II, comes back as the Peach Festival. You know, we sort of wonder why the Peach Festival. Well, during the 1940s, peaches were a major crop on Vashon Island, beginning to supplant strawberries. But a peach blight wiped that out. And so in 1949, when no peaches were available, they changed the name to the Harvest Festival, which remained through the early 1950s. And then it became the Vashon Island Festival. And then finally in 1980, they came to their senses and took it back to being called the Strawberry Festival. So it's gone through lots of iterations. And that's one of the things I want to do, is take you through some of those concepts. This is the, whoops, let's see what I did. There we go. This is a brochure put out for the very first Strawberry Festival in 1909. It was a big red strawberry brochure with photographs and images. And if you look at the right side of your screen, the island gem of Puget Sound, Vashon Island with a huge strawberry in the middle of it. And if you look at some of the terms, refreshing sea breezes every day of the year. Sometimes they're more than just breezes, but we do get wind. And the other side, notice how advantageously the island is located between Seattle and Tacoma. It's the location that counts. Location, location, location. And then it goes on to talk about us being the Staten Island of the Pacific Coast. I'm not sure we want to be known as the Staten Island of the Pacific Coast, but that was sort of what they were promoting at the time. The island gem of Puget Sound. The festival didn't take place then for another 3 years until 1912, when it was reconstituted by the Federation Club, which was a federation of clubs on the island, and they held it at Burton. And what's interesting about this photograph, so this is from the end of the road at Burton, looking out to where the Burton dock is. And what you'll notice is there's 3 steamers there bringing people to the festival. Well, each of those steamers is about the size of the Virginia 5, which holds about 150 to 200 people. 150 people now. At the you know, in 1912, they would pack as many as they could get on. So you can figure 150, 200 people per boat. You know, there's over 300 people on just that run to the island. So very substantial kind of visitors to the island. And then this is what they walked into. This is, they advertised it as miles of strawberries. And so you came into Burton, this is in Burton town, and they laid out all these tables and all these strawberries. And so it was really the beginning of sort of the official Strawberry Festival as a continuing sort of annual festival. It got canceled during World War I. So both World War I and the 1918 pandemic, so sort of echoes of what we see today. But during World War I, the festival was canceled. So from 1918 to 1920, there was no festival on the island. It returned in the 1920s, originally as a Chautauqua in 1920 and 21, and then back to a Strawberry Festival in 1923. And this is the poster. This is the very first Strawberry Queen for Vashon Island, Mrs. Melissa Lucy Janes, 104 years old, was selected as the queen for the Vashon Island Strawberry Festival. And we had queens and courts all through the 1920s and 30s into the 1970s. So it became a very important part of festival. I just love this photograph. This is from 1926. This is the Queen and her court, and some of these names you'll recognize: Ramquist, Marjorie Stanley, who was a longtime librarian on the island, Mabel Holland, Laura Brousseau, whose parents owned the store at the North End dock, Frances Belkink. But look at these sort of classic 1920s sort of young women dressed in very fashionable sort of 1920s kind of styles. But the festival and the court and the selection of an island queen was a very important part of the festival all during this time. During the Great Depression, as the economy worsened, the festival was canceled in 1928. It was canceled. It came back for a few years as a Lily Festival. It came back as individual community festivals. So Burton, Ellisport, Cove, each held festivals. The Sportsman's Club would hold a carnival. But through the 30s into the 1940s, festival did not occur every year, and it wasn't a regular kind of thing. And in fact, in 1938, in the newspaper, they talked about how the Association of Clubs, the Businessmen's Club, which was a precursor of the Chamber of Commerce, couldn't even afford to pay the light bills on the street lights downtown, so much less hold a festival. So there have been times when it has been tough to have festivals. The Lily Festival, this is a Norman Edson photograph taken from along Quartermaster Drive. You're looking at Burton Peninsula in the background, and then in the far background, you're looking at Maury Island. And that cleared area is the newly developed golf course, so Vashon Country Club over on Maury Island. But we had a Lily Festival for a few years in the late 1920s and 1930s. And then, of course, World War II, Pearl Harbor, the festival was canceled for much of World War II and didn't return really until 1946, when returning veterans, the VFW, actually held an initial carnival in 1946. And then in 1947, restored it to what was called the Peach Festival. And here you're looking at downtown Vaishan. You know, you can see the movie theater in the background and the parade coming up the main street here. But notice the banner talks about Peach Festival. So for 2 years, 47 and 48, it was the Peach Festival. And in 1949, when the Peach Blight came through, they turned it into a harvest festival. And this is an interesting slide. This is Vashon Island Packing Company. This is the Mukai barreling plant. And you'll notice on the truck are the barrels. They were in the midst of a transition between barreling strawberries into 500-pound barrels, but also into 30-pound cans. And so what you see on the truck is both. And the driver of the truck with his arm out the window is Milton Mukai, as a young man. So he's probably in his late teens at this point. In 1951, this is an example of some of the floats. I mean, this is sort of a Rose Parade kind of quality floats, something we don't see very often in the parade today. We see some very creative things in the parade, but this very traditional kind of float with a queen and her court on it were part of the 1951 festival. And then in 1959, because of lack of interest, the Chamber of Commerce thought about canceling the festival because they weren't able to get people involved and the volunteers necessary. And Cheryl certainly knows what an effort it is to put a festival on. It takes hundreds of volunteers and thousands of hours of work to make a successful festival. So in 1959, there was the threat of the festival being canceled. And then the JCs, which was a businessman's organization, stepped up and took over and began to handle the festival through the 1960s and into the 1970s. So this is a shot of downtown Vaishan. This is where Bloom's is located, the corner of where Bloom's is located. You'll notice that the building at the Alibi Cafe is two-story at this time. In the 1950s, that top story was taken off. And in the very background on the left, you can see the tower of the Presbyterian Church. So when the JCs took over in the 1960s, they reinstituted the Island Festival Queen Contest. This is 1968. Notice this is a notable festival Queen Contest because it's the first time there was an African-American contestant. Dorothea Miller, third from the right on your screen, was first African-American Queen contestant on Vashon. And the Queen contest continued into the early 1970s when changing sort of attitudes, changing sort of mores about beauty contest began to affect all of America, but also Vashon Island. And so 1971 was the last festival queen. Rhea Brobeck was the last queen. Now Rhea Brobeck Harvey still lives on the island, but she is our last Strawberry Festival queen, our festival queen on Vashon Island. In 1976, interesting sort of Cheryl talked about how the festival changes and develops. In 1956 was the first time that Vashon Allied Arts had booths for island artists and also outdoor concert stages for island musicians. So it really began much of what we think of the festival today is the parade, but also island artists and the music that's part of the festival. Well, that really developed in the 1970s, and in particular began in this 1976 Strawberry Festival. In 1980, as I said earlier, the festival had gone through names like Peach Festival and Harvest Festival and Island Festival. Finally, folks came back to their senses. In 1980, it was called Strawberries Forever, and then 2 years later became the Strawberry Festival and has been the Strawberry Festival ever since. Some things that, notable things about the festival that developed during this time. Whoops, let me see how I go back. There we go. 1989, which was the centennial year for Washington State, the K2 Fun Run was renamed the Bill Burby Inspirational Run. And for the first time, the Vashon Thriftway Shopping Cart Drill Team appeared in the parade. And of course, they are one of the mainstays of the parade every year. 1992, the Old Tractor Society became part of the parade, and every year people come out to see the collection of antique tractors on the island. And of course, the tractor owners look forward to displaying their old tractors in the parade. And then in 2010, the Tom Stewart Memorial Classic Parade was named. There had been a classic car parade for a few years before that, but with Tom Stewart's death, he was a major supporter of not only of the fireworks in Quartermaster Harbor, but also of the classic car parade. So they renamed the classic car parade in his honor. So as you can see, the festival has changed. The festival has evolved. Its name has changed, but essentially it has been, since its very beginning, a celebration of the island, a celebration of island life. And of course, with being canceled this year, the question is, what is the future of the festival? And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Cheryl.
That's great. Thank you, Bruce. And I don't have all the specific timelines, but I will tell you there's been a lot of key elements to festival that have changed just even in the short period of time in the last 10 years. In fact, Carnival was a key element of the Carnival. The Carnival was a key element of the festival for many years. And unfortunately, due to the expense, it wasn't really sustainable over time. And I know that's something that's come up time and time again about, well, can't we have, Carnival? Well, We can't even get carnival companies to come to the island because of the difficulty. But the good news is that the carnival actually morphed into a giant slide for kids and families alike one year. Also, it morphed into a kid zone, which was very fun, with a beer garden actually for the parents so that they could hang out while their kids were having fun in the kids zone. And also other unique ideas like the movie theater, ran movies all day, and they could get bands on their hands so that the kids could go in and watch all sorts of movies. And then we also, as recently as last year, have a nice train ride that kids can participate in. So you can see how things just in the last 10 years have morphed. And you mentioned local music, local music is really very much the heart of the festival. And I think what's really fun is in 2018, we had 7 stages running simultaneously and continuously throughout festival. It was pretty incredible. And this is just a great picture of that. And in fact, we even had a youth stage where up and coming local musicians could play and showcase what they were up to. In last year's festival, and something I want to note is that artists, as you mentioned, have always been a key component. Our local artists have always been a key component of our festival. And when we used to have the artists actually all in one place where the current library is. And during the construction of the library, we were forced to actually relocate, sort of, for lack of a better term, the artist village to a different area. And we took over the area right by the farmers market for the artists. And we're continuing to look at how we can really showcase artists throughout the festival because they are such an important part of our community and our culture here. And something new for last year is one of our new restaurants, Ruby Brink, took the time to really showcase local farmers and actually had farm produce there. And something else, speaking of local, that's changed over the years is that we used to have a beer garden that was focused on, done by a distributor. It was hosted by somebody locally. We had local people who were putting it together, but they brought a distributor off island for our beer gardens. And one of the big changes, because we now have so many beverage makers on the island, what we've done is we've made our beverage garden. It's not a beer garden anymore. It's actually a beverage garden. It's a Sip Vashon beverage garden because the majority of what we actually pour and sell in the beverage garden is made here and sold here on Vaishan, which is a big change for the island as well. A big change that happened last year, in addition, is we got some great support from King County. They actually ran the water taxis on the festival weekend so that people could come over from Seattle. And we ran shuttles to help people get into town. So it kind of reminds me of that old picture, Bruce, you just showed us where, you know, they had the ferries coming in, the Virginia came in and people walked up to the big flats of strawberries. Instead, in this case, they came on the water taxi and we shuttled them into town to participate. So that's a really fun change that has happened. And I think it's certainly a big change when you think about the fact that we have 30,000 people. And just to add, just last year alone, it took us 169 volunteers, Bruce, to actually run festival. So it is a big effort for everyone. And you know, those volunteers come from all different kind of areas. We've talked about some of the musicians and we've talked about some of the artists, but in last year, we actually had UMA, which is aerial art and performance, and they were in Ober Park. And that was something new, but also something that everyone really loved. And again, another change. So I think that when you think about festival and you think about sort of where we are, it's really about bringing the community together and celebrating the ideas and the passions locally. There, you can see here an example. Mukai has had a really wonderful resurgence, and they've done a great job of renovating the property. And you know, they had a very nice presence in the parade. And I think that that's the kind of thing that we're bringing together at festival, is all the different cultures that make Vashon special and make it different. So could you go to the slide for me, Bruce? Thanks. Thank you. So here's a great picture of the festival parade and all the people who are in it. And I have to say that this was the inspiration for the pop-up parade that we just did. And it was a lot of fun for everybody to come down. And when I think about festivals, and I think about the thing that we're doing right now in COVID, we have to think outside the box as to how we can bring different ideas to bear. And so we came up with a pop-up parade. We've got a lot of other events that we're thinking about, and we need unique ideas for those as well. So I'm going to actually put a call out to anybody who's listening to please let the chamber know if you have ideas on how we can do some of our core events differently, because it really is the ideas and the passions of our local community that make festival what it is and make all of our community events what they are. Next slide for me, Bruce. Thanks.
I think that's our last slide. Yep.
So with that, I actually do want to just mention one other thing about sort of festivals and going forward. And I think this webinar is a perfect example of it. We're using technology to communicate, right? And we mentioned for the pop-up parade that we live streamed the parade on Voice of Vashon. So when we start to think about festivals and events on the island, I think that we have to think about how we're doing things differently. Imagine if we took technology like virtual reality and we applied that to what we were doing for a festival. It actually could mean that we have a lower impact on the environment, reduced need for transportation, and even have a broader reach. So again, I just want to put a call out to anybody who has ideas on the events that we do. We would love to hear them because, you know, it's everybody in the community that makes these things possible. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. Elsa, do we have any questions?
Let me get back up here. So no questions yet. I want to say though, thank you. This presentation was just beautiful. The pictures are spectacular and you're making me really miss festival. Sorry about that, but they're gorgeous pictures. I did want to say, because there was something I was involved in, you need to, in the next presentation, make sure you add the Lavender Festival. I was surprised at even though it wasn't a big festival, it was a festival on the island. And I'm surprised and amazed at all the different kind of festivals that we've had over the years. So no questions.
Elsa, if you have just thinking about all the different festivals, and then, you know, this was focused on Strawberry Festival, but, you know, I was doing a count of all the festivals that we have work on in a year. And we have a Spring Fling Festival with Easter egg hunts and a bunny.
That's right.
Right. And that's fun for the community in the spring. We have Sheepdog Classic, which, I mean, maybe it's technically not a festival, but it certainly is a big event that draws a lot of people to the island. We do also the Japanese festival now at Mukai, which is just absolutely fabulous. And that's been going on now a couple of years and is definitely worth visiting because that's at the historic Mukai strawberry barreling site. We also have a cider festival. And of course, I have to mention the cider festival, right? We make cider at Nashi Orchards. But Cider Festival is in partnership with Viga for the food access and also with the Vashon Fruit Club. So you see these partnerships really working out to make for great, great festivals. And we're thinking about doing something different this year. Speaking of thinking outside the box, because we can't probably gather for Cider Fest, we're thinking that we're going to do a farm and orchard driving tour. so that people can actually go to the farms and to the orchards all over the island to celebrate harvest. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Halloween, because we love Halloween on Vashon. And it's not an official festival, but it certainly feels like it. And this year, maybe masks, they'll be in, right?
Right.
Just a little humor there. Sorry, that's my And then, of course, you know, we have a winter festival too, where we do the tree lighting and we have our downtown parade. Again, if people have any ideas on how we can morph these fun things that we do, I just would love to hear from everybody about it. But lots of festivals, right?
Right. There are a lot of festivals on this island. And so there are a few comments here. One wonderful presentation, and Jessica Dwyer, I'm outing you, Jessica, as she wants a UFO festival, please. So put that on your list. And I bet Jessica would help with that too. And wonderful presentation. Let's see. Oh, someone wants to know, can you put the web links to all these events? How do we find out about all of these events?
Well, I would say that you can go to the Vashon Chamber website, vashonchamber.com, or our Facebook page. We post on all these events there. And I believe that you have a lot of information about various things on the Heritage Museum site as well, right, Elsa?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's our job. Yeah. And we also had a very big Pride event in June just recently. So there's another festival type of celebration to add.
We're going to have to do a whole new presentation on all the festivals.
Yes, yes. So that's all that we have in the way of questions and comments, except for that it was just a wonderful presentation, and thank you. We did, just so you all know, I did manage to get us live on Facebook, so we are streaming, and I want to thank you both so much. And I
here's
think that's it.
Here's festival. Thank you, Elsa. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.